Mr. A here, saying, how y'all doing?
Yo! Are you ready to rumble? Or should I say tumble? Cause I don't stumble or fumble like a cracker by gumbo. Standing on the ground, flat feet firm, killing worms and germs, and I'm doing it on my terms. Intellect, when a little bit, I'm gonna...
Welcome to the Rumble. We are back and better than ever, helping you stay ready so you don't have to get ready. We don't want you sucker punch, so we're here each and every week helping you keep your guard up. I am Jeremy Lavelle with Remedy Claims Consulting at Claims Coach on Instagram and TikTok, and they just call me the mouth of the South. And alongside of me is the catastrophe queen, the claims dame, Miss Jessica Odell, and as always, the rambunctiously radical and the robustly rhetorical, the one, the only Baby Cakes, Miss Donna. Hey, what's going on, everybody?
Not much.
Not much? Boy, you sound enthused.
It's allergy season still. It's like,
Yeah. Right. Is it winter yet? I'm ready for winter.
What? Hell no.
It's finally spring.
Man.
And the turtles got a new pool.
Yeah, she has stolen from their natural habitat 2 turtles. Now there's been a great distance of time in between the 2 kidnappings.
They love me.
Yeah, I guess.
They do.
I guess.
Well, at least Elijah does.
Well,
I don't know about Goliath.
Yeah, because he continues to move into new digs.
Yeah.
I mean, he's had 3 new homes in the last 4 years.
Yep.
You guys have like a kiddie pool or something set up?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's what she did. Filter and everything. I mean, the turtles have a pool. I don't even have a pool.
Can we get a pool?
That's how that works. Yeah, she's like, that sounds like permission to me to buy a pool.
Yeah, I need to get a pool.
Leave us not misinterpret kind of where I'm headed there. No.
What?
Well, I'm not saying no.
I'll get my pool.
I just don't think there's room for one.
There is. I'll get my pool.
Yeah.
Watch me.
We'll have to open up the back wall of the living room. So, well, that's okay. That's okay. Lots of planning there. So, speaking of all of the fun things we want to do you have any fun facts from Baby Cakes?
I do. I managed to scrounge up some fun facts. Fun Facts with Baby Cakes is brought to you by Inc., the best way to get paid after a property claim. Inc. Save time, get paid. Did you know that the number 4 is the only number with the same number of letters as the meaning of its name?
I don't get it.
4. The number 4 has 4 letters in it.
That's the only one?
Mm-hmm.
You sure?
The only one that has the same number of letters as what it is.
Okay. Because 3 has 4. 2 has 3. 1 has 3.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting. Okay, well, moving on.
I thought that was an interesting fact. Forrest Mars, the creator of peanut M&Ms, was allergic to peanuts.
Really?
What? The irony.
Yeah.
Yep. He never got to taste his creation.
Wow. That's unfortunate. Because I like peanut M&Ms.
Yeah, they're great.
Yeah, they are good. I love one at the time.
I almost accidentally killed one of our staff officers on deployment. I wanted to, because sometimes you get bored on deployment, right? So you kind of prank each other. I swapped all of her Skittles for peanut M&Ms, and so she opened her bag, grabbed a bunch, popped them in her mouth, and I had no idea she was allergic to both peanuts and chocolate.
Oh my God. How can you be allergic to both peanuts and chocolate?
I don't know, but she was such a cool, level-headed, person. She flipped out on me because she was so dead serious.
She's probably allergic to birthdays and
puppies.
And well, lots of people are allergic to puppies.
Those people are allergic to birthdays too.
Birthdays and sweet dreams.
Like
you know what I mean? Like that's probably that's rough. Yeah.
I just thought it was a normal prank. Like, I'll just swap out all of her Skittles. She was a Skittle junkie. Yeah, that was.
You ever stay in one of those really nice hotels, and it's got, all the stuff in there, and you find yourself the night before you check out trying to call around and see if you can replace it. Mitch Hedberg had a little stand up about this. It's like, do you happen to have Coke in a glass harmonica or individually wrapped peanut M&Ms?
Moving on.
That wasn't funny at all, was it? Yeah.
After Outkast's song mentions "Shake It Like a Polaroid Picture," Polaroid released a statement saying that shaking or waving it will ruin the picture.
Let us be clear.
Yes.
What are they supposed to do?
Well, everybody
Well,
shakes
everybody-
it
They
after
do that.
take
It doesn't do anything. It could actually ruin it.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ben and Jerry first thought about making bagels, but they switched to ice cream because the bagel machine was too expensive.
Oh, well, I'm glad they pivoted. That's
Yeah, me
good to
too.
know. That's good to know. Yeah.
I'm wondering what kind of bagels they would have made.
I don't know.
They would have been chunky, whatever they.
I was going to say chunky monkey bagel.
Chunky monkey bagel.
Everything but the kitchen sink bagel.
Yeah.
Melted bagels.
In the band ZZ Top, the only member without a beard, his last name is Beard.
That's true. That's funny.
The Grateful Dead paid for the Lithuanians to go to the Olympics.
Which year?
Wow.
I think it was Barcelona.
Barcelona.
Barcelona. And that's why their uniforms were tie-dye.
Is that the first year of the Dream Team? Is that where we had it? Was in Barcelona?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Did you ever watch Three's Company?
Yeah. Come and knock on our
Long time
door.
ago.
Do you remember the beginning when John? Yeah, remember in the beginning when Jack Tripper fell off his bike because he saw a pretty girl?
Uh-huh.
That was Suzanne Summers in a wig.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Little
Very
fun
funny.
fact there. Now you know, and knowing is half the bullshit.
Knowing is half of it there, guys. And we've got a show, believe it or not, as calm and collected as I seem to be today. And I don't know why I can't find my energy. We're going to get into some policy stuff. And most specifically, we're going to be talking about endorsements. It's going to be coming to you in 3 separate rounds. When you hear this sound, you know that the round has begun. And when you hear this sound, you know that the round is over. Now, I want to remind you that this is not a debate show. This is just us commenting on the everyday things that you guys are involved in, because it's you guys are the one. Oh man, I cannot talk today. You guys are the ones that are in the Rumble, and we're just sitting here talking about the blow by blow things that everybody deals with. Jess and I are both still very involved in the working of claims. We don't just sit around and come up with show ideas and talk on podcasts about it. We actually work claims day to day ourselves. And so we've got some insight that we would like to share with you. Guys, always remember, if you have any questions or comments, you can leave those below. You can hit us up on Facebook on the Pain of the Claim channel or on YouTube on the Pain of the Claim channel. We're going to get into fun things like endorsements right after this, because round one is next. Public adjusters, listen up. It's Jeremy Lavelle, owner of Remedy Claims Consulting, host of The Rumble, and most importantly, your claims coach. Public adjuster training is one of the hardest things to find. Sure, you can take some online seminars, you can show up to conferences, but none of them tailor training just for you until now. Whether you need to learn how to estimate, scope, negotiate, or prospect, I can help you drill down on the skills you want to develop. Maybe you're just starting out and you need to learn the claims process from A to Z, or you're just wanting help on strategy on a specific claim. I can help you find the traction you were looking for and learn how to truly control the narrative in the ever-changing world of claims. You can reach out to me directly at 888-596-8772, or you can find me on the web at remedyclaims.com and just click Get Started. That's 888-596-8772 or remedyclaims.com and click Get Started. You can even shoot me an email at jeremy@remedyclaims.com. That's JEROMY@remedyclaims.com. It's time to move your career to the next level. Round one. What is an endorsement? God, I'm just messing up today.
You got this.
What's
You
wrong
got
with
this.
you?
Round one. What is an endorsement and what does it do?
What'd it do?
You're wearing your Rumble t-shirt. Maybe that's a jinx.
I think I am wearing my Rumble t-shirt for those of you not watching at home.
Oh, speaking of that, the guy that won a Rumble t-shirt reach out to us because I don't have your information anymore.
I think I have it. I think I'll have to go back through the post because I know that he left it in the post, and we've got a Rumble t-shirt for you. We're going to get that sent out to you. I think he may have even texted it to me, but I'll have to go find it.
Okay. Reach out again.
Yeah.
Those that didn't go to the class missed out on the goodie bag. I drank out of my Rumble cup this morning for coffee.
I actually got tagged on Instagram with somebody drinking out, and they showed a picture of "Stay ready, so you don't have to get ready." the print on the other side of it. So yeah, if you go to Control the Narrative, you may get a mug. You have to show up to Control the Narrative. Anyway, endorsements. What are they? What do they do? Well, essentially, it is this. Endorsements are like amendments. Essentially, is what they do. Is so the policy is written sort of in this boilerplate format, if you will. And Jess may have a better explanation than I do. But basically you have the policy, the run of the mill kind of policy. And it's going to say, from policy to policy, they're very similar, although I would encourage you to always read the policy because there are nuances that will make a difference. You have to read each policy for each claim to make sure that you understand. I would not assume that one policy is exactly worded like the other, and it can be there can be some nuances and difference that really make a difference in coverage. So always read the policy, but basically a policy is written with some level of boilerplate language. And then they come in with endorsements to change it. And I'm going to give you a really good example of ones that we most commonly take for granted right here and right now. The most common endorsement that we see is called replacement cost coverage. That is actually an endorsement. Most of the time you have policies like the very popular HO3, but there are carriers out there that don't use the HO3 form. I mean, a couple just right off the top of my head. State Farm does not use the HO3 form. USAA does not use this HO3 form. Farmers does not use the HO3 form, but we refer to it as a replacement cost policy, right? But in general, replacement cost is an endorsement and how that is applied and how that works. But it is essentially an amendment, much like you would have the Constitution of the United States has a collection of amendments that not only change it in some kind of way, but further clarify the spirit of it. And I think that's really it. Jess, do you have kind of anything to add there that maybe I'm fumbling over? Because I can't be trusted today right now.
No, I was going to say most policies will have, because when I first became a PA, I said, what's the difference between an exclusion and an endorsement? So an exclusion is something that typically it's named or spelled out in the policy. An endorsement, however, can still exclude some things, but it's more of like a customized addition to the regular policy. So it can add, it can remove, it can alter coverage in some way. And it's a way, just
like God, it can give and take away. It can do both. Yeah. Right. And it's kind of a funny word to use because you think it's going to be something that adds to the policy.
It sounds positive.
Exactly.
It sounds
positive, but it can be any direction.
It can go in. Yeah. They can do whatever they want to with an endorsement. Go ahead, Jess. I'm sorry to have interrupted you.
No, it's cool. So, an exclusion is an exclusion is an exclusion. It's just no. That's it. No, it removes. You're excluded. But an endorsement can, like we said before, can be any of the above. Add, remove, alter. That can include, like, let's say there was no coverage for some expensive jewelry or some artwork, right? That's beyond the standard limits of a policy. So you might request an endorsement to include those types of items. So in that case, it would be a positive. And with that endorsement, you typically would pay a higher premium. There are some endorsements, on the other hand, where, like we'll get into some in round 2, but I'm just going to throw out the roof surface. So, sometimes when you have an endorsement, it may be because you're getting a discount on your premium. So just, pay attention to that, because that'll tell you whether it's adding or taking away. If you've paid a premium on top of the standard policy, then that endorsement typically would indicate that it adds value.
Well, that's one of and that's really kind of what I was going to get into in round 3, but I don't mind letting the cat out of the bag there. I mean,
sorry.
Yeah. No, that's okay. No, it's fine because we're going to get into a lot deeper stuff, but that was sort of my intro, and we'll get into it more in round 3, but you're absolutely right. One of the key things that you want to check is whether or not the endorsement is charged for. And I want you to know that one of the
And where? Where,
first
Jeremy, do people find those?
I was
How do I
actually
know?
I was actually it was actually about to just come out of my mouth before I was so politely interrupted. I mean, there's nothing more annoying than for someone to go on talking while I'm trying to interrupt. The you can find it on the deck page. So one of the things that I ask a homeowner for, even in my initial call, is do you have your declarations page? Because the declarations page is not only going to list the endorsements, it's going to list any relevant caps that are in there. Now, I don't know. I don't think most declarations pages like list like the roof surfacing schedule, like how they depend. That's generally down in the policy most commonly. But you talk about something that takes away from replacement cost coverage. That is an example of that. We'll get into that more in round 2. But that is a really good example of endorsements that we see that take away from coverage, and you're going to see more and more of those. And if you're a contractor or a roofer out there, I'm sure if you've done this for more than a year, you're aware of these ACV or pre-depreciated roofing endorsements that exist. And so you got to ask the question. Otherwise, you may find yourself in a situation you may find yourself in a situation where you have an invoice, but there's no insurance coverage to cover it because they have a large deductible. Then on top, they only have an ACV value paid for that roof. And most commonly, what we see, especially in the North Texas region, is we do a lot of roof claims. We have a lot of hail claims, and that is certainly going to affect the payout on it. And you want to make sure that you're aware of that. You can make your homeowner aware of it. I know a lot of times that these policies are sold to people without the awareness because they're shopping premium. You know, they still want a low deductible, but they also want a low premium. And the only way to do that is to eliminate coverage or add endorsements that take away coverage. Another one that takes it away, we have these vernaculars for it, like the metal marring or the cosmetic exclusion endorsement. That's another one that takes away coverage. And so when you get into these things, these are things that you want to be aware of. And as public adjusters, that's why I immediately ask for that declarations page, so that prior to them filing a claim, you know, that may affect their decision process on whether or not they're going to file a claim. Because if they've got a 15-year-old roof that's ACV and they've got a metal marring exclusion on that policy, there may not be a whole big reason, and they've got a 2% deductible on it or a higher end deductible. May not be a lot of reason to file a claim. It may just be better off for them to pay for it out of their pocket at this point in time, because essentially they're going to be paying for most of it out of their pocket anyway. I want to see, before I file a claim, I want, somewhere in the neighborhood of about 4 to 5 times the deductible. I really want the insurance carrier paying 75% of my loss. And at that point in time, I feel like it is a fair reason to file a claim. Other than that, I would recommend and counsel that you not file a claim for anything under 75% of payout from the insurance company, because at that point you may want to look into financing options and things like that. Now, understand, different people are in different financial situations and they may not have any choice but to get the money that they can and fix it the best they can with the money that the carrier provides. So again, that's not a rule, that's more of a guideline than anything. But these endorsements, again, can be found in the declarations page. Often, if there's any cap that goes with that endorsement of any kind, you're also going to find that on the declarations page too. They're going to pay up to this amount or this limit. I am seeing a lot in just it used to say, like, for mitigation, for example. Mitigation used to be, we will pay the necessary construction costs to aid in the mitigation of further damage from the property, right? Those are things that it used to say, but I am seeing more and more and more that they're capping that. They're capping that.
Yeah.
I've seen as low as $1,500. Most commonly, when it's in existence, I'm seeing about $5,000 is what I'm seeing most commonly.
Our water mitt company right now has a claim where the policy actually has a $4,000 cap on emergency services. So here comes this massive hurricane, just destroys and pours water all into this home, and all the insurance company owes is $4,000. It's nuts,
Right.
what they're doing.
And you just you've gotta weigh those things out before you start, and especially in this market, in this environment. And I would say that this market, and when I talk about this market and this environment, I mean from now until 2030. Okay, so I'm going to tell you that these sorts of things are likely to extend before we really kind of see a turn back in the direction of the policyholders' favor, if we see one at all. Because I really think they're really trying to redefine, and they're going to use endorsements to do this. So rather than write an entire new contract, they're going to be using endorsements. And so, guys, brush up on this endorsement thing. I mean, it's not going anywhere. And this is how they're going to control basically what they want to cover. One of the things that I want to point out about endorsements is endorsements, when you read the language of the endorsement. Now, there's a couple of different things I want to cover here. A lot of times states will require an insurance policy to cover homes or properties in a certain specific way that adheres to the state guidelines. Often you'll see that towards the end of a declarations page, or sometimes towards the end of the policy entirely, and it's called an amendatory endorsement. So we've looked at the contract. We're not going to really make you change the contract, but if you're going to use this contract in Texas, this is the language. And so you're going to cover, like if typically things would be excluded in a policy in some other states, you're going to go ahead and cover this. Like in Ohio, they have a matching statute within the state. And so because you're going to do business in the state, typically the language in the policy doesn't provide that, but we're going to tell you that you have to maintain a consistent uniform appearance. The state has gone to the effort to basically outline and define that. You know what I mean? Most states are a continuous uniform appearance state. I'm going to tell you that because that's the purpose of buying a replacement cost value policy, and that's a policy with an endorsement of replacement cost value. You're actually paying premium for the betterment. Okay. And to withhold that coverage, to withhold your ability to leverage that coverage, is a material misrepresentation and purpose of the endorsement in and of itself. So public adjusters, contractors, homeowners, whoever you're talking about, that replacement cost value endorsement ends a lot of arguments with desk adjusters really, really quickly. And you want to go look at the language that's inside that replacement cost value language, and that is going to help you with a lot of, we're just going to repair the roof. Now, I'm not saying it's a silver bullet, you know what I mean? But it is definitely going to help you ask some pretty tough questions.
Yeah, and I would encourage any contractor out there, ask for the deck page. When you're taking an insurance claim type job, ask for a deck page. If you don't understand it, aren't sure, have never seen one, or what, call a PA. Just call a PA and say, hey, can you help me understand this? Build that rapport and relationship with a PA, because I can't think of anybody off the top of my head that would say, no, I would never help a contractor. I mean, there's lots of PAs willing to help.
Oh, I would help any contractor that calls me.
Right.
One of the things I think it's sad that you have to hire a public adjuster just to get your claim covered. I don't have any, look, claims can be complicated, then can be time consuming, and a public adjuster is really handy from a service standpoint to handle that. But I think it's terrible when basically that you have to hire them so that the policy is properly executed. I don't think that's okay. I know that's a lot of what we do, but I don't think it's okay that it requires a public adjuster to properly execute the policy, right? I think that in and of itself is a travesty. Okay. And I want to tell contractors out there, as well as homeowners, anybody can read a policy. Anybody can. You can't negotiate the policy, but reading is fundamental. If you can read it on its face, and as long as there's no words that you don't understand in there, I mean, you can basically understand. I mean, there's no negotiating that. It's what it says, right? And so as it pertains to it communicating thoughts and coverage to that, the policy will stand alone and in and of itself without the need for interpretation. There's no need for interpretation. Not interpreting the policy. I'm simply reading it, and reading is fundamental. So, I would also encourage contractors, if they want the policy, if they want clarification on it, you can get with an agent. I mean, I would not go down the desk adjuster road here. What I would do is, if you're wanting clarification on what the policy says, you can get with their agent, or you can have the agent contact underwriting. And that's a trick I like to do a lot, is when I anticipate them trying to use some sort of exclusion or some sort of policy misinterpretation. What I like to do is get into and ask them about, get them to call underwriting and get basically what's called an underwriting review, or a legal rendering of what the policy language actually means there. Don't attach it to something. Just get an innocuous sort of on its face definition. And sometimes that can be really, really handy in getting a claim approved. But we're going to figure a little bit more out about endorsements. We're going to talk about some common ones that you run into, even other than the ones that we most recently talked about in round one, because we're going to get into common endorsements in round two, because it starts right after this.
One of the most difficult claims you can work is a contents claim. It requires extreme detail and significant documentation. Ricky McGregor with Monarch Claim Services is the expert you need on your side. She will handle on-site evaluation, inventory, photo documentation, pricing, and overall contents claim organization. She will work with your team beginning to end so you can focus on the rest of the claim. Do your client a favor and call Ricky McGregor with Monarch Claim Services. You can reach her at 515-783-1434. That's 515-783-1434, or find her on the web at monarchclaimservices.com.
Round two, common endorsements. So I wrote a few down just kind of off the top of my head. You know what I mean? We talked about the replacement cost value endorsement. Most policies kind of come with that built in. So I don't want to say that it's not part of like an HO3. An HO3, even all the way back to a DP3, was a replacement cost value policy. So replacement cost value policy has been around for a long time. But one of the most common endorsements that I see almost on any policy that's sort of automatically included is law and ordinance. That is a very popular one, because law and ordinance is excluded as a peril. You know what I mean? It's excluded as a peril. It cannot cause a loss. But often when a loss occurs, you may have to upgrade or update certain systems within the home, and the ordinance and law the endorsement then helps pay for those additional costs. Now, I could go all day on this one alone, because it's often miscalculated, but I'm going to let Miss Odell kind of chime in here, if you want to talk about ordinance and law, great. If not, if you want to add another one, we can certainly do that. But that's one of the most common ones I see.
So two of my favorite to see are the extended replacement cost endorsement and the inflation guard endorsement.
Those are good ones. Yep.
I get excited when I see them, because it tells me, that the carrier is trying to take good care of their client in the replacement cost, because they're taking into consideration, there is inflation. So ensuring that the property's value is adequately protected through inflation. And then the extended replacement cost is, especially handy in catastrophes when, there's a surge of roughly 25% on average of, labor and materials, just because it is a catastrophe. There's not enough bodies, there's not enough materials, there's not enough to start the restoration process. So because there's such demand and low, inventory, there's the cost of goods and everything go up significantly. So
it really, and now understand this. When carriers write for coverage, there is an algorithm. They plug it into what they call a rater, and so they consider the zip code and the location of where you are. They consider, there's a lot of questions they'll ask you. Are you within, say, 500 feet of a are you within 500 feet of a fire hydrant? Do you have a security system? All of these things are kind of figuring out, they're determining the risk of the property, and then they look at the square footage, they look at all kinds of things like when it was built, those kinds of things, as to determine sort of what the risk level of incurring a loss is. But then they also look at the total rebuild of the property. Like, should there be a fire or a complete and total loss? And it's a number, right? And that number can be wildly affected depending on circumstances. I'm going to give you an example. Jess brought up, like, in a catastrophe situation, right? Well, let's say that your area recently incurred a catastrophe. Let's say you're living in Florida, you may be living in Orlando, right? And Tampa and Fort Myers just got pummeled by a hurricane, and all of Florida is going to be affected by that. Okay, never mind the craziness that happens in Florida, but all of Florida, the building materials, all of the labor, and all of that kind of stuff is going to be directly affected. And your house burns down completely as not a result of that whatsoever. And now that number that they put in there was good on the day that they put it in there, but over time that number changes. And anything within the market and the economy of the United States, it's ever shifting and changing, that number could fall short. And so one of the important things about having that expanded replacement cost, I'm working a claim right now that's got it on there. We're at policy limits, and I'm so glad we have it, because it was a fire. It was a fire, and we're going to get to the expanded replacement cost. And it's actually funny. That's about what it's going to cost to rebuild this house, all in and all done, was that extended thing. I can also tell you sometimes it is more expensive to repair a house than it is to start repairs with a wrecking ball. To just basically demo it and rebuild it, because trying to save and retrofit and repurpose and make kind of what a half standing structure is, because what gets burned and destroyed affects kind of everything around it. And so tying it back into existing construction can be incredibly labor intensive and be difficult. And that's where that expanded replacement cost may come in, because we want to preserve the house for whatever reason, right? But we're still going to get to policy limits. And it's when we hit that cap, is when that endorsement is triggered. So one of the caveats of that endorsement, that expanded replacement cost, is you have to be at policy limits. When you get to policy limits, that's when this endorsement triggers. Other than that, it doesn't. You know what I mean? It just does not trigger at all. What's another one of your favorite or most commonly seen endorsements?
So there's the water backup sump pump overflow. There's sinkhole, earthquake, having some flood insurance endorsement added to your policy. That's a big one, especially along the Gulf. Those are typically the big ones. Loss of use. I don't know if that's
usually included as a coverage, as an absolute coverage. One of the things that I've seen in loss of use is that they have an actual loss sustained endorsement on there, whereas typically they're going to limit it usually around 40%, but it can vary depending on what you want. But most commonly I see 40% of coverage A that's listed there. You'll see like on contents, sometimes you will see the expanded replacement cost on contents. The one that I'm working right now does not particularly have it. It does have the actual loss sustained for additional living expenses. And it is amazing the things that I can throw under that coverage and make sense of. You know what I'm saying? So it has always been kind of an interesting these different endorsements that you see come in and how you utilize them. You know what I mean? And how you employ them. One of the, I was talking about ordinance and law earlier. Remember that endorsement is generally, you'll see 5,000, 10,000. Sometimes you'll see 10%. Sometimes you'll see 20%. It just kind of depends. Where you want ordinance and law is on the older the home, the more ordinance and law that you want, So if you've got a brand new house, I probably wouldn't pay for ordinance and law for the first 5 or 6 years of coverage on that house at all. If you've got an older home, then you're going to probably want a little bit more coverage, especially ones that were built prior to 1976. Say if you've got a 50-year-old home, you probably want a little bit more ordinance and law coverage. Now, I want to be clear about this. I see carriers make this mistake often, and I'm going to use a roofing example because I see this happen a lot. You've got 3/8-inch decking on 24-inch spans, and the code is very clear about what has to go on 24-inch spans, and that is half-inch decking, or 7/16 is what I think the code says. And then the carrier will so that decking essentially then has to be replaced. Okay. So assuming in some situations where you actually pick now you can do a deck over. I don't recommend that because a lot of times you can find yourself in a situation where it leaks. It can generate some leaks in some places if the roof is kind of cut up and causes. If the roof is cut up and you've got a bunch of different valleys and rakes and stuff like that in there, and you got a bunch of roofing transitions, I don't recommend doing a deck over because it's just more susceptible to leaking. However, you can do a deck over, but if you're pulling the decking up, what I see carriers do is they take the entire cost of the half-inch decking and charge it to the ordinance and law. And if you've got a big roof, that ordinance and you may run out of coverage. What they should be charging for is not the full price of the decking, but the difference in price between the 3/8 and the half-inch, because coverage A would absolutely cover the value of the 3/8. That's what they owe for anyway. But the upgraded decking, that's the difference in cost. And so one might argue with me, it's like, well, there's nothing wrong with the decking. We're only upgrading it because of that. And again, I would say if there was nothing wrong with it, that decking that you're pulling off, that 3/8-inch decking that you're pulling off has value to it. And if it's no longer used or going to be abandoned, they're owed the ACV on it. So, those are just my simple little arguments. That's an interpretation thing. The policy is pretty unclear about that, but you always want to, basically, we call it code upgrade. And so the only thing that endorsement should be paying for is the upgrade. Another one that's out there that's getting more and more popular that I'm seeing more commonly is the limited seepage and leakage. And a lot of times they're going to wrap in rot, fungi growth, those kinds of things. You'll see those endorsements there. But often this limited seepage and leakage is under a specific circumstance, right? And it's got to be coming from something. It's got to be hidden. It's got to be, so there's all of these little caveats. If this, then there's coverage. But if all of these boxes aren't checked, then there's no coverage, right? They're still going to, because typically they're not going to pay for a leak that goes for weeks, months, or years. Policies have gotten more defining in that they'll actually go down to 14 days, which is the minimum number of days required to achieve the plural weeks. Otherwise, you'll see that, and otherwise it's an excluded loss, right? So if it's been ongoing for more than 2 weeks or 2 weeks and 2 weeks plus, then there's no coverage for that. And this endorsement comes in if it's hidden, if it's from an appliance, if it's from, something like that. There's all kinds of different triggers. You have to read the language of what makes that endorsement trigger.
I think going back to contents too is scheduled personal property. So if you have a certain
That's
heirloom,
a good one. Yay, that's a good one. I'll shut up now.
so something that's been maybe perhaps appraised, like an antique clock that's been passed down 3 or 4 generations or something like that. You could find that on your scheduled personal property endorsement.
Stated value stuff too. Sometimes because these things appreciate over time. One of the things that homeowners, if you're listening, I know we don't have a lot of homeowners that listen, but I know a lot of people that listen know a lot of homeowners. So pass on this information, like musical instruments. You have this thing this guitar that your dad gave
Guitars,
you.
usually.
You know what I mean? It's like, I've got a guitar right now that, good grief, I can't believe it. It's 30 years old. And lo and behold, this guitar is not made anymore. And I got to thinking, I probably need to get that scheduled on my insurance policy because I can't just run out and buy another one. It's not that it's made out of anything that is, it's not that it's made out of anything exotic or anything. In this particular case, I do have some exotic stuff, but this is not necessarily. I had one that was actually made out of Hawaiian koa wood, and koa is only the only way that you can use koa wood is stuff that basically the tree has to die and fall over. Then you can use the wood, but you can't harvest it while it's still alive. So it's very limited. But this particular guitar, I bought it for $1,400, but now it's no longer available. I started looking on the open marketplace on music instruments, a little site called reverb.com, and you can see what those things are selling for. And it's basically worth about $2,100 now. And it's an older guitar. You just can't find it anywhere. And not to mention guitars get richer with age. So some of these things, when it comes to, determining like, kind, and quality, I know it's very subjective about how a guitar sounds or whatever, but you want to look at how they're taken care of. But I love that schedule when they appreciate or stated value stuff. Art falls into that. There's some weird stuff that you have no idea that are collector's items, like Corningware, the blue flower Corningware, crazy stuff. We actually did an episode with Ricky McGregor on some of that specialty content stuff. You should go back and listen to it. Contents is a great coverage. It's usually 70% of coverage A. And if you're not addressing contents or don't have a way to address contents as a public adjuster, you should probably figure out a way to add that to your business.
Even if it's outsourcing,
even if it's outsourcing. I mean, it's a great service to your client first and foremost, because they don't know what it takes. The fire claim that I'm talking about now, she had something like $600,000 worth of coverage, and she goes, I don't think I have $600,000 worth of stuff. And I'm like, oh yeah, you do.
Trust me, man.
Trust me, you've got that much. I've dealt with contents that have had. You've heard me talk about it on the show. I've got a client that has he's got $600,000 worth of coverage, $650,000 worth of coverage, but he's got $1 million, a hard $1 million worth of stereo equipment. Never mind all the other stuff that's in his house, but he's got a hard $1 million of stereo equipment. And there was a carrier that I'm still fighting with on getting all of that covered. Just to give you an example on that very expensive stereo stuff, it costs probably $50,000 to just set it up, because of how it gets installed and balanced, and this component talks to that unit and all of this stuff. It is, it's crazy. And the contents adjuster that I'm dealing with the carrier, it just cannot believe that anything costs this much or why anybody would spend this kind of money on it. And you'll find that with adjusters. It's like, they just can't believe somebody would buy, spend $500,000 on their home stereo setup, and it costs, $50,000 to get it installed. But this guy does it. And you'll run into the eccentric. Guys, we're going to get into, golly, I can't even remember where I'm headed. So give me a second and I will get myself together. This has been such a fun episode when Jeremy's not on his A game.
You've had 30 minutes to get it together.
Yeah.
I don't think it's going to happen.
I don't think it's going to get together. I don't think it's going to get together. we're going
baby
to get
cake.
into round 3 on how to determining on how to apply an endorsement. It starts right after this. Are you a public adjuster, insurance roofer, or part of the restoration industry looking to streamline your first-party claims process? Let me introduce you to Claim Wizard, the ultimate tool that transforms the way you handle claims. Claim Wizard is designed with your unique business needs in mind. It offers a comprehensive suite of features that makes managing claims effortless. With its intuitive dashboard, you can easily track and manage every aspect of a claim from initiation to settlement. This powerful platform supports document management, automates workflows, and provides real-time updates, ensuring you stay ahead in the game. At Claim Wizard, they understand the importance of support. That's why they offer unmatched customer service with a team of experts who are always ready to assist you. Whether it's a technical query or guidance on best practices, Team Wizard is there to ensure your experience with Claim Wizard is smooth and efficient. Time is money, especially in the claims industry. Claim Wizard is engineered to maximize efficiency. It streamlines the entire claims process, reducing the time spent on paperwork and administration. This means faster claim resolution, increased customer satisfaction, and ultimately a boost in your business's productivity and profitability. So if you're looking to elevate your claims handling process, Claim Wizard is the solution. Try it today and experience a revolution in claims management. Claim Wizard, revolutionizing claims, handling one claim at a time. Round 3, determining how to apply an endorsement. So Jess alluded to it earlier. One of the big things that you want to look at on that declarations page is sort of what the definition of it is, what it does, what the cap on it is, and then to that final column on the right-hand side is to see if there is a number there where they charge for it, or it says something like included. Okay? Because if it is either charge for or included, it should be adding coverage and not taking coverage away. The matching Jess, I want to throw this over at you because clearly I have a hard time talking today, and this is going to be a really fun episode. So I'm going to take a beat and let you kind of talk about this and shut up now.
Yeah. So if it looks like there's been a discount applied, you can almost guarantee it is taking coverage away in some shape or form. And we hit on it a little bit earlier, talking about the roof surface, the roof payment schedule. I forget the actual acronym for that, but basically it's like having an ACV policy for your roof, where it says, okay, here's the value of your roof, but because it's X years old, we're going to, reduce it and give you actual cash value for your roof.
Yep.
It'll say over in your declarations page, it'll say discount applied or something like that. If you see that kind of language, you can guarantee it's
right. I lost you, Jess. I can't hear you. Something happened.
Is that better?
Yeah, it literally lit up like it went dark, like it was gray.
I think I sniffed my nose a little and it hit the freaking mute button. It's not even a button; it's the whole top of it. That's weird.
And she's back. Jeremy can't talk, and Jessica can't run her equipment, but we're going to do the show anyway. Yay. So this is
nice.
Only on the Rumble will you get a kazoo.
You're welcome.
There we go.
You're welcome.
I'm glad this is a family show.
Right?
Anyway, so I miss kind of that last part. Go ahead. You were talking about the roof surfacing schedule, or the roof. They call it RPS, roof price schedule. There's different definitions, different policies call it different things, but essentially just to make sure everybody's following along at home and we're all on the same page here, what they'll do is if you have a 30-year roof, they're going to depreciate each year. They're going to depreciate it by 1/30th, essentially. So when you get to 15 years, it's a full 50%, reduction in replacement cost value. So they still use replacement cost value to determine it. And so remember, the cost of the roof goes up over time. What it costs to replace a 30-year roof 15 years ago is a lot less expensive than it costs to replace a 30-year roof now. So it's still centered around the replacement cost value of today. It's not, so the depreciation is based on replacement costs. And again, depreciation or actual cash value is calculated replacement cost value of today, or at the time of the loss, less depreciation for what's existing. And then that's how we arrive at it. And so, but it's just a predetermined depreciation rate. And you'll find that's pretty much the only place where depreciation is defined in any policy. And most of the time, adjusters pull it out of their hind parts. Now, Xactimate does, depreciate things by age, but depreciation is both subjective and objective. And the way to say that is, the objective is age and the subjective is condition. And when you're looking at aging condition, both should be considered when you're applying that depreciation to determining what that actual cash value is. You'll see, and so when we look at these ones that take away, another popular one is the metal marring exclusion that I mentioned earlier. It almost has to be functionally damaged in some kind of way, because that metal marring exclusion is generally speaking to its functionality. I know Farmer's definition of it. Basically, there has to be a hole in the gutter. You know what I mean? Before it will allow it. I think if you had like a tree limb fall up against it and it significantly changed whether or not the gutter would catch the debris coming off of the roof, so to speak, then you might be able to make an argument on that. That's more than just a scuff or a marring. But that's another popular one where they limit coverage. So
here's some other things to look for when you're reading these. If you're not sure if it's adding or taking away, reading the endorsement itself, if it starts to impose maybe some additional requirements, or it mentions some additional exclusions, it sounds like that would be more of a limiting coverage than anything that would expand coverage. So if it starts to have that flavor of, okay, they seem to be imposing some more requirements or some more restrictions, then you can pretty much guarantee it's one that takes away coverage, doesn't add.
Because remember, what we're talking about here is called an open peril or an all perils policy, basically. And, other than what's excluded, basically when they talk about wear and tear, ordinance and law, all of these different exclusions, what they're saying is those things have been determined to not be a peril. That's what they're saying, is these things are not allowed to be considered to be a peril. However, if it is in fact a real peril, then it is something that can be claimed. And then they use the endorsement to go, but the peril has got to be at some level truly damaging to the functionality of the property. And that is where you get into those. You'll also see endorsements. One of the new endorsements that I'm seeing a lot as far as a restrictive endorsement goes is that they don't pay for like, kind, and quality. They now pay for a functional repair.
It's getting nuts out there.
Yeah. So now insurance policies are no longer written under the principle of indemnity. Right. Indemnity is to hold harmless, to indemnify, to basically be put in a condition where you are not less than you were prior to an occurrence. And so now that entire concept, and I've got some good friends that are attorneys that will tell you that pre-loss condition doesn't exist in a policy. Those words don't. It's written under the principle of indemnity. many of these ways that we approach insurance losses are under legal principle. Basically, we're all going to agree that the point of buying an insurance policy is to indemnify us. And that has been the running away. That has kind of been the concept and idea behind it. But I'm telling you, that is rapidly changing. And public adjusters out there realize that these people are buying. I have seen these where they will do a functional repair. So it's not always going to be exactly what was there before. I'm not seeing a lot of them in Texas, but I do see them in the Mid-Atlantic and the Northeast quite a bit.
You know what endorsement we completely forgot? It's got to be one of the ones we laugh at the most as an industry.
What's that one?
That is the anti-public adjuster endorsement.
Yeah, they do have those. Now, we don't run into those in Texas because I love these contracts that try to get you to agree to waive your rights, because one of the rights in Texas, it's actually in the Bill of Rights, is to hire a public adjuster. You have the right to representation. And I mean, you're talking about basic rights that any citizen of the United States would have, and that's the right to representation. I think that is laughable. And if you want to put a feather in your hat as a public adjuster, to the point that they're wanting to put in their language, like, we don't want to deal with y'all. You guys are hard to deal with. You ask tough questions and we don't like it.
Don't call the cops on us.
You know too much. You know too much. Somebody pulled you aside and gave you information you're not supposed to have. I don't even know if it's in the spirit of that. I think sometimes, there is no other reason to put that in a policy. I'm going to tell you that as a claims handler, I much prefer dealing with somebody who knows what they're doing, right? Jess, I'm sure in your career, you have dealt with the guy that didn't seem like his IQ was above the room temperature. And then you've dealt with the guy that walked in and goes, yeah, no, I see what you're saying. And blah, 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 blah. And they write this. And even though their estimate is clearly written according to guidelines, you can see how he's loopholed the shit out of that thing in every way that he possibly can to get a good, fair, clean estimate. And you know what? I'm going to figure out a way to work with that. You know what I'm saying? Right. If he's trying to find a loophole in this thing, he's more than likely trying to find a loophole somewhere else. I literally one time told the adjuster goes, look, man, I cannot approve supervision hours. I would rather you put 18 linear foot of cabinets where there's only 15. If you need the money to do that, I'm not going to question you. This is just what, and I am dead serious. This was on a water loss back during Winter Storm Uri, the big freeze that hit Texas back in 2021, literally told me, look, I can't pay for supervision. If you need that money, let's figure out another way. And that's what he suggested. Now, we didn't do that. But what I did is went through and wrote every possible legitimate line item that I possibly could find in there. And you know what? We got the work done. We got the job done. Everybody was happy. And he just did not question me on it. Great adjuster, very, very smart. And he told me, he goes, man, I do fires. I don't do water. I do fires, and that's what I know, and I know how to do fires. And I turned my estimate into him, and he goes, man, this is a really well-written estimate. I have had these rapports with these staff adjusters, these desk adjusters. Some of them actually know what they're doing, and I go in sort of with that assumption, and let's call it cautious optimism, right? I go in hoping that I've got an individual that is looking to actually cover the loss, but many of them are indoctrinated to think that PAs are trying to overinflate the claim. And so anything that we ask for is inappropriate. And that's just, nothing could be further from the truth. And so there are tricks and techniques that I use and teach to kind of help ward that off, if you know what I'm saying. And there are ways that you can get around that, but you do have to be strategic. You know what I mean? And you can't go in just hoping that they're going to see it your way. So you have to be strategic about how you structure some of those. And endorsements that are often weaponized against people. They've actually paid for the endorsement, the matching endorsement, the mold endorsement, and again, you have to read what it says. I want to be clear. You have to read what it says, but I have seen like a $5,000 cap on mold, and that $5,000 cap generally only refers to the remediation of mold. So if you can take something and apply it to the water loss that created the ensuing loss of mold, you can put that stuff underneath the coverage A where there is no cap other than the limits of liability. It's only for the items for the remediation of mold. Remember, remediation and mitigation are two very different things. Mitigation is to stop further damage. Remediation is to remove something toxic or harmful from the environment. And so when we go to remediate mold, things like, and I'm not saying every claim needs this, but sometimes we do have to sand the studs. If the mold has gotten into the studs or is growing on the studs, we may have to sand the studs, and then we are going to encapsulate that or shellac those studs to make sure that the mold doesn't spread or grow. That is a remediation effort. Applying antimicrobial to the area is a mitigation effort. You're trying to stop further damage. And so while you're trying to stop mold, it is not a remediating effort. It is a mitigating effort. And so the antimicrobial spray would be removed from the mold coverage in that situation. And I see it in matching all the time. We found one undamaged thing. And so now the roof is going to be capped at $10,000 because there was one shingle. And so it triggers the matching endorsement, and all you get is $10,000. That is not what that is for. I know matching endorsements often only address discontinued items. So when you have a repair or a scope and the shingles are discontinued, they will cover that the undamaged discontinued product up to that amount. But be clear, before you go screaming that we want to replace the roof because it's discontinued, those are the words that are going to trigger that endorsement based on your own evidentiary findings presented to the carrier. So if that's your strategy, you may very well, with your own words, trigger an endorsement that would otherwise a loss would be covered because the shingle is brittle. Okay. And it can't be repaired. So you want to address all of coverage A first and try to get everything under the available coverage with the full policy limits before you start dragging endorsements in to get them to pay for it, for everything. Again, endorsements aren't to be treated like a silver bullet. Under any stretch of the imagination, it doesn't automatically obligate them to anything. All of this has interpretation, and you want to be careful about screaming some of these things because they automatically have this endorsement, and you don't necessarily want to trigger this endorsement until it's absolutely 100% necessary to do so. Jess, any final thoughts?
I would think it would be interesting for people to go through their policy and see how many endorsements have been added over the years.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe they haven't really noticed or paid much attention to. I mean, I'm just as guilty as anybody else. I just pay for my insurance policy, it's auto pay, and it's autopilot.
And well, it's in escrow. You know what I'm saying? I'm not even looking at it. And so generally when State Farm sends me a letter in the mail and it's kind of thin, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Yep. You know, it's like they're updating their privacy clause, or you know what I mean? Their terms and conditions of online access that they've mailed me a letter for that they have to legally notify me of. And I'm not paying attention of it. But one time, those one little thin letters is there's been a material change in your policy where you now no longer have replacement cost coverage on your roof. We are now moving you to a roofing pricing schedule where you are going to, and your roof is currently, 11 years old, and this is the max amount of money that you can get for your roof now. And it's like, whoa, wait a minute. And a lot of times those are going to come in 90 days before renewal. So you're not dealing with an insurance loss. You don't have a coverage issue, and time goes by. Like mine and Donna's, absolutely, it renews in November. And if there is a safe time in Texas, not that I think that there is, but if there's a safe time in Texas, it's the month of November, right? Especially here in North Texas, where we're probably not going to experience any kind of loss other than some isolated incident. And, and then we get into the spring, and I didn't even know that all of a sudden we have ACV on our roof, and, we've got a 40 square roof. And now I'm only going to get $7,000 or $8,000 for this roof after I pay my deductible. That's a problem, and I've already rung the bell, filed the claim. So, you want to make sure that you're looking at these endorsements that get added over time. So that's good. That's a good point, Jess. Baby Cakes, any thoughts?
Nope.
You always have something to say.
No. I'm hungry. What are we having for dinner?
Well, that's a thought. Jess, thank you so much for joining me yet again on a wonderful episode of The Rumble. Guys, I hope you enjoyed it. If you did or found it useful, please click like and subscribe. And if you know somebody who needs to hear this, click that share button and pass it on to them. We always welcome your comments, questions, and thoughts in the chat on YouTube. We also have a Facebook page called The Pain of the Claim Presents, where we post up the current episode, and you can always throw in questions and comments there. But we will be back next week. And in the meantime, stay ready so you don't have to get ready. And we will see you on the next one.
Got my hand on the hammer, ready to ram you like the fire slammer jammer. Yes, we're coming up, don't even try to diminish it. I won't start it, but I damn sure will finish it.